So, is the new Spider-Man movie really as good as many people say? Watch on for my review, along with my reviews of last weekend's new releases, delayed because of my current road trip. If you'll forgive me the delay, all that and more is coming your way this weekend at the movies. Hi, and welcome to this special double-barreled This Weekend at the Movies. A couple movies from this past weekend, including the Spider-Man movie, and 3 movies from the weekend before, all delayed because I am currently on vacation, a long road trip. As you can probably tell from the remnants of sunburn on my face, which came from driving with the top down through 13 states over 3,500 miles. At the moment, I am staying at my mother's house, even as she is preparing to move, and I'm prepared to give you the best this weekend at the movies I can at this point. Let's get started. First up, Spider-Man Brand New Day, otherwise known as the Odyssey Part 2. Well, after all, both movies coming out in the same summer are about mythical heroes and star Tom Holland, Zendaya, and John Bernthal. Maybe some of you hadn't thought about that. I know I hadn't until somebody pointed it out to me. All right, enough of that. Let's get serious. Spider-Man Brand New Day, directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, sees Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, played again by Tom Holland, actively fighting crime in New York City and working closely with one particular New York City detective. He's doing what he does best, but he's lonely. Aunt May, played by Marissa Tomei, is gone, even though we see her pop up in some flashbacks and dream sequences during the movie. And his girlfriend, MJ, played by now wife Zendaya, and best friend Ned Leeds, played by Jacob Batalon, don't remember him because of certain events from the previous movie. And that's really taking a toll on him emotionally, even though he does cross paths with them during the movie. As he's fighting crime, he becomes aware of a new threat, an enemy that is trying to get into a Department of Damage Control building and is after something called VMAX. This enemy seems to be nameless and faceless. It's really probably better described as an entity because it's able to jump into the bodies of just about anyone and control their thoughts and actions temporarily, kind of possessing them and using that power to battle Spider-Man and try to get into that headquarters. This becomes such an issue that Spider-Man ends up enlisting the help and advice of a few other Marvel characters that will be familiar to those who are familiar with Marvel characters. Spider-Man Brand New Day is a worthy sequel to the previous Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. There's a lot of action, some terrific visual effects, and a really cool twist in the movie which has the effect of shifting alliances and changing the game for the last act of the movie. However, in my opinion, this movie tries to do too much. The movie's over 2 hours long and frankly doesn't need to be. Some of the subplots could have been cut shorter or eliminated entirely, and you would have still had a very strong movie. So even though the characters are vivid, the acting is strong, and this is a very engaging movie, I still can't get away from the feeling that it would have been even better if it were tighter. So I will give Spider-Man Brand New Day 3 claps out of 5. Wait and stream it. But that's just what I think. Let's find out what somebody who has a lot more experience and interest in these kind of movies thinks. My buddy John Herrick is back again to comment about his opinions of Spider-Man Brand New Day. Why don't you tell the viewers why you're a good person to comment on the Spider-Man movie before we get into it?
Okay, well, I've been to comic books and comic book lore since I was a young man, since I was a little child. Um, Collected comics, had hundreds and hundreds of them, and have followed every comic book story since the 1970s.
What did you think of Spider-Man Brand New Day?
Well, I thought it was a pretty decent movie. The difficulty I had with it was long. It was a very long movie. So
Mm,
as a result of that length, there were several different story arcs going on at the same time. So sometimes it felt like they were just creating a story to create a story. You know what I
mm,
mean? Now, I
I
do
do.
think the movie was worth seeing. I think that it was very good. I think that those people who follow comic book lore, when they discover some of the things about the villain that maybe haven't been spoiled online
Hmm.
already for you, uh, they're going to be pretty surprised with that little
Yeah,
twist. I had an audible outburst in the theater.
what was your favorite part?
My favorite part was, well, I mean, I've been thinking about the villain being exposed all day long,
Hmm.
so it was very interesting. Um,
You mean the twist when you found out who the villain was and what they were really after?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, that's also what I would have named as my favorite part. And I didn't say this in my review, but I also felt that some of the characters and moments were kind of lackluster, not as much energy and excitement in there as I would have liked. Would you agree with that?
Sure. I got the feeling a couple times they were just there to be there
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So that Marvel could say they had, some additional characters in there.
All right. So, I give my movies a clap rating on a scale of 1 to 5. How many claps would you give Spider-Man Brand New Day?
I'd have to give this one four claps. I think unless you're a diehard comic book fan or a fan of superhero movies, you can wait for it to come out on a streaming.
Well, I will definitely keep you in mind when I see something new come out that you would be interested in, and you know that our viewers would be interested in hearing your comments on. So we're going to have you back, John. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me here, my friend.
Olivia Wilde is having quite the sexy summer. Right on the heels of her provocative movie The Invite, which she stars in and directs, comes I Want Your Sex, which she also stars in, playing a character who is much bolder regarding sex than in The Invite. In I Want Your Sex, Wilde plays Erica Tracy, an avant garde in vogue artist who produces sexually explicit artwork, or erotic as she calls it. And it quickly becomes apparent that her artwork is a direct reflection of her personal tastes and her personal life. In her big city art gallery, she employs several young assistants, two of which are played by Hollywood scions. Elliot is played by Cooper Hoffman, son of Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Zap is played by Mason Gooding, son of Cuba Gooding Jr. Elliot and Zap become friends at work, and Elliot becomes very friendly with Erica. In fact, he immediately becomes her favorite. I don't mean favorite employee, favorite assistant, I mean favorite sex partner. She seems to demand sex from him as a condition for his employment. And Elliot is actually pretty happy to go along with this because Erica is exciting. And he has a girlfriend named Minerva, played by Charlie XCX, who seems totally uninterested in him. It makes you wonder why they're together in the first place. Well, in their mainly sexual relationship, Elliot is the sub, and they seem to have a lot of fun together. But over time, Elliot begins to develop feelings for Erica, and she's not the kind of woman who's interested in that sort of thing. So, as you can imagine, eventually things come to a head and get kind of dramatic. but not too dramatic. See, the thing about I Want Your Sex is it's billed, according to IMDb, as a comedy, drama, romance, and thriller. Well, it's a comedy that's not that funny. It's a drama that has a couple dramatic moments, but really it's not too dramatic. It's a romance that's not very romantic, and it's a thriller that, again, has a moment or two, but isn't really very thrilling. The relationships in Elliot's life with his girlfriend and his best female friend whom he lives with really don't make a lot of sense. Why they happen in the first place and the way they end up. And his relationship with his boss is disturbing and pretty explicit, and it just seems to be showing the sex for the sake of showing the sex. Not a lot of nudity and actual sex, but a lot of sexual acts. And it's frankly just not that entertaining. I can only give I Want Your Sex 2 claps out of 5. I'd say skip it. Rough weekend at the movies. And I'm not necessarily talking about the quality of the films. Or am I? More on that later. For now, let's just say that there's not a lot of touchy-feely, sentimental, feel-good stuff happening in this crop of theatrical releases. Stay tuned to find out what I mean this weekend at the movies. Okay, before I get into this past weekend's 3 new movies, which go from dark to very dark to really, really dark, quick note about my surroundings. I am on a road trip. I did see the movies this past weekend, but I didn't have time to do the reviews before the road trip started, so I am in a hotel, and my face is a little sunburned from me driving hundreds of miles with the top down, but here I am to tell you about this past weekend's new movies. Let's get at it. As you can probably tell from the title, Motor City takes place in Detroit. More specifically, mainly in the years 1976 and 1977. But of course, Motor City isn't just the title based on the nickname of a city. There are a lot of cars featured prominently, and because it's a period piece, a lot of cars that you probably haven't seen on the roads in quite a while. And one of those cars is used in a very unusual and thrilling action sequence. I won't spoil it, but it's a pretty inventive car chase, let's just say. Before I tell you what the plot is and who's in it, I have to say up front that if you do see Motor City, you'll probably consider it one of the most unusual movies you will see this year. When was the last time you saw a movie that wasn't a silent film but had almost no dialogue? That's Motor City. About 15 minutes in, I realized that I hadn't heard 2 words pass between any of the characters. Then about 30 minutes in, they had that, exactly, 2 words. One character says, well, the other one says hi. And that's about all you get in terms of direct dialogue until the very last scene in the movie. And then the 2 characters in that scene each get 1 sentence. So I'll tell you in a minute how well I think this worked or didn't work, but first a little bit about the story. And I gotta tell you up front, it's really hard to describe this plot without giving too much away. So wish me luck, here goes. The movie stars Alan Ritchson, known these days mainly for TV's Reacher. He plays the main protagonist, an ex-con who falls in love with a gangster's girlfriend. The gangster is played by Ben Foster, known mainly for 2016's Hell or High Water, and the girl is Shailene Woodley, known mainly for the Divergent movies. Well, the gangster's girlfriend falls in love with the ex-con, and the gangster's not too crazy about that arrangement, so he's able to do some things that make some significant trouble for the ex-con, and he's out of the picture for a while. But when he comes back on the scene, he wants to get his girl back. I can't tell you exactly what's happened to her, but let's just say it's not as easy as calling her up on her cell phone. So this is a love triangle. On some level, it's a revenge movie. It's a good story. But as I said, told in an unusual way. How do you tell a story like this with almost no dialogue? Well, you need a very strong score with a great soundtrack. This movie has both. And you need some excellent actors who, through their body language, their facial expressions, and an occasional line shouted out into an empty room, more or less. And you have all of that going on here too. So I like the movie. The action's great. There's a lot going on in this movie, a lot to watch and be interested in. But I have to say the no dialogue thing made it a little difficult to follow at times, not being exactly sure where each character's loyalty lies, or even who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. It's a little murky, but that's probably on purpose. It's probably the way the film's designed, and that basically worked for me. Not as well as maybe having actual dialogue would have, but still, I can recommend this movie just with 3 claps out of 5. I say, wait and stream it. Hadestown the Musical is a filmed play. Now, if you've never gone to the theater or even sat in your living room and watched a movie that is filmed live as it's being produced on stage, you might want to make this one your first, because it's very well done, very creative, very entertaining. I'll get into those details a little bit more in a minute, but first, let me tell you something about it. This is a Broadway play which is being performed in London at the time of this filming, with 5 principal characters being played by the Broadway actors, and the rest of the cast filled in with actors from the West End production. Now, of course, not just actors, singers, dancers. This is a musical. So we begin with actually some cool backstage shots before the actors even come onto the stage, which I enjoyed, especially being an actor myself, brought back memories of my theater days. And then we see the actors come on stage to a very warm reception from the audience. There basically is no fourth wall at the beginning. The actors are acknowledging the audience, and the narrator, a character known as Hermes, basically is interacting with the audience the whole time. The story is a combination of 2 Greek myths, Orpheus and Eurydice, and Hades and Persephone. These 2 stories intersect as these 4 main characters interact with each other throughout the main plot. Orpheus and Eurydice are young lovers who have a very difficult time in life. They don't have a lot of money or a lot of prospects. So out of desperation, Eurydice makes a deal with Hades, a deal she soon regrets. Orpheus tries to rescue her from this difficult situation, and Persephone, Hades' wife, is trying to intervene with her husband on behalf of the young lovers. The first scenes, where Orpheus and Eurydice are meeting and falling in love, look like they're taking place at New Orleans jazz club during the Great Depression, that kind of look, that kind of vibe. And then the stage physically changes when the story is happening in Hades, which is basically a factory company town with people basically acting as drones and nameless, faceless workers. And that is the situation that Eurydice finds herself in, that Orpheus is trying to get her out of. While you're watching this movie, it's not just like being in the front row of a play. It's better than that. You get lots of different camera angles, some from far back showing the audience and the stage, some from the perspective of the actors looking out into the audience, but of course, appropriately, the footage is mainly focused on what's going on the stage. And with that, we get lots of different camera placement, camera angles, a rack focus here and there. Not only do you feel like you're in the front row watching the play, sometimes you feel like you're right on stage with the actors, almost as part of the production. So I thought the way these very old stories blend together, the way this filmed play is being presented, and certainly the quality of the actors, singers, and dancers performing all make Hadestown the musical a very entertaining couple of hours, a little bit more, at the movies. And I highly recommend it. I give it 4 claps out of 5. See it in a theater if you can, but you might not be able to because Hadestown the musical is a very limited release. You might have to wait until it streams, but either way, the 4 clap review stands. Pinocchio Unstrung is a British horror slasher flick. Yeah, you heard that right. In case you're not familiar, this is the 5th film in Rhys Frake Waterfield's series of TCU movies, Twisted Child Universe movies, in which he takes classic children's stories and makes the protagonists into murderous monsters. In Pinocchio Unstrung, what happens is a little boy named James is orphaned and he goes to live with his rich grandfather, Geppetto. Well, Geppetto lives alone until James moves in. He is very rich and very eccentric. When he sees James is kind of having difficulty relating to kids his own age, he decides to make James a friend out of wood, the titular Pinocchio. Well, when James and Pinocchio meet, they immediately hit it off, and Pinocchio quickly becomes very attached to James, very much wanting to protect him, to the extent that he wants to get rid of everything and everyone who he even thinks is a problem in James's life, meaning that he starts killing folks. And of course, a big part of the original Pinocchio story is that Pinocchio wants to be a real boy. Well, this Pinocchio wants to be a real boy like James. So when he kills somebody, he takes some body parts or some organs and puts them on or inside himself, thinking that those are going to make him more real. Well, I'm not going to tell you where this story goes because you can probably figure it out for yourself. Pinocchio Unstrung is a rough movie to watch. It is what I felt unnecessarily grotesque. And all I can say to director, writer, producer Rhys Frake Waterfield is, leave my childhood alone, man. Okay, I'm better now. I did not see his previous movies, including the 2 Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey films. I'm glad I didn't see them. I wish I hadn't seen Pinocchio Unstrung. Not only is it really disgusting, the way it portrays children in terms of being involved with violence, being the victims of violence, cussing left and right. I mean, call me old-fashioned, but when the kids are saying more F words than the adults, I'm pretty uncomfortable with that as a parent. So you put all that together, and I'm giving Pinocchio Unstrung 1 clap out of 5. For the love of your childhood, skip it. For my Retro Reel review segment this weekend at the movies, I decided to make a connection to the release of the creative and unusual film Motor City and take you back 9 years to a movie that takes place in the same location, Detroit, and the movie is called Detroit. It depicts real-life events that took place 59 years ago this week. Detroit is a 2017 docudrama which depicts the race riots that took place in late July 1967 in Detroit and their aftermath. The movie is written by Mark Bowl and directed by Catherine Bigelow, the same team which brought us the Oscar-winning movies Zero Dark 30 and The Hurt Locker, which won 6 Oscars, including Best Director for Bigelow and Best Picture. The movie shows us how the riots began with a group of mainly white police raiding a mainly black unlicensed drinking establishment, and the way the officers were treating the people they were arresting sparked the riots, which consumed the city, paralyzed it, and threatened to destroy it. But the main focus of the movie is what happened one night in the Algiers Hotel during the riots. Caught up in all this are a group of young black men and women who are partying, a couple of white girls visiting from Ohio, a security guard who tries to help out, played by John Boyega, known for Star Wars Episode 7. And Anthony Mackie is in the mix as well. He was also in The Hurt Locker, and of course is mainly known for the Captain America movies. One of the partiers at the Algiers motel shoots off a starter pistol as a joke. Well, the National Guard, camped out nearby, thinks that they are now the target of a sniper. So they raid the Algiers. The Detroit police are there too, and there's just chaos. Throughout this night at the Algiers, the police are demanding to know who shot the gun, where it is, and when they can't get the answers they are looking for, or they're not satisfied with what they're being told, they take that as an excuse to abuse, terrorize, and even kill some of the people at the Algiers that night. But when that night turns to day and the episode ends, it's not the end of the movie, because Will Poulter's character and some other Detroit cops are arrested for murder. We see them go on trial with John Krasinski as their defense attorney. Well, this is a depiction of a very unsettling, upsetting, and little-known chapter of American race relations in the 60s. It is difficult to watch, but you could also say necessary, because it shows us the way things were, which helps us to see how far we've come, but also makes us realize we still have a long way to go. The story, in a sense, seems to try to do too much, but the points it's making are made very clearly. The actors' performances are outstanding. It's especially interesting to see some of these actors play against type. And what we get is a movie that is, yes, entertaining, but more importantly, educational and thought-provoking. So I think that if you've never seen the movie Detroit, you should check it out. You've been watching This Weekend at the Movies On the Road edition. I'm actually going to be on the road / on vacation for the next couple of weeks, so I thank you for your patience in waiting for this video, and I hope you'll bear with me as I see how many movies I can see and review on this channel until I get back home. But by mid-August, I will be back home, back into my normal rhythm of seeing several new movies every Friday and posting reviews as soon as I can. And I hope that you'll stick with the channel throughout this time. And as they say in YouTube land, like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my honest, spoiler-free, quick turnaround, usually, movie reviews, along with retro reel reviews of some of the great movies from years past, which have some connection to that weekend's new theatrical releases, and from time to time, some special videos that are movie related and I'll post just for fun. My name is Dave McLean. Thank you very much for allowing me to share my love of movies with you.